Hi, I'm Jessica Jackson of Thriving in Motherhood, and today I want to do an introduction to the 5-step path from surviving to thriving. It's been a while since I've talked about this, probably a year or two now, and this one path completely changed my feelings about hard seasons as a mom. Life-changing. I feel like after I understood this framework, I had so much more peace and felt empowered even when things were hard, instead of getting stuck in feeling like I was a victim or a martyr in my home or with my family. It made it so that I could be more of the person who I wanted to be, even when things were really challenging. And so I want to share this with you because this is the thing that has given me so much hope, even when things are hard. And so we'll go ahead and jump in to today's video. Don't worry, you don't have to take notes as I go through this 5-step path. I created a free gift for you, the 5-step path from surviving to thriving checklist, to help you take these principles I'm about to share with you and put them into action in your own life, where you can just print them out and reference them as you need to first very quickly figure out where you are along the path, and to know what to do about it and feel empowered from this moment forward to help you go from feeling like you are totally surviving in motherhood to feeling like you can thrive again, no matter how hard your circumstances might be. So you can get that at thrivingandmotherhoodpodcast.com/checklist. So today I want to tell you about this 5-step path. Now, this is something that I was talking with a friend and just reflecting, because my first 7-8 years of motherhood, we were just constantly in a hard season. My pregnancies were incredibly hard. My postpartum recoveries were hard. I had really bad anxiety and depression, did not know it at the time for my first, and was able to get more tools and skills by around the time after my third child was born. We've moved a lot. We moved like 5 times since I started having children. All around the country, on our own, never lived by family. My husband was doing his grad school program, and that was very intense at lots of periods of time, and getting a new job, very intense. We just have had hard things happen. And I don't think I'm unique in this, right? Every single one of us has our own circumstances that are challenging, whether it's, a marriage or a marriage is challenging, your health is challenging, your children have hard things happening to them, the moving, the family, like we all have hard things. That's just how life is. So it's okay. But what I was recognizing is this path is because what I would do is I'd be in this hard season, and then I would try and fight my way out of it and get back to where things feel good again. And then we'd go back down, and I would fight my way out of it and go back down and fight my way out of it. And I realized there is a pattern here. Actually, I'm getting a lot better at fighting my way out of it. And so I went back and I realized, there's 5 phases here. There's 5 steps along this path from surviving to thriving. And once I understood that, it was the most liberating thing, because now I no longer am scared of a hard season, because I know what to do in that season. I know where to put my time and energy. And I also recognize that it's temporary. And I was reading a book during one of these really hard depressive times about optimism, because I feel like I used to be really optimistic, but I stopped sleeping during the night when I had kids and just became very pessimistic and hopeless. And so I had to work on that. So, one of the things about the difference between people that think optimistically and pessimistically is time, how they view time. If they feel like something is going to last forever, that there's no end, then you're pessimistic. But if you feel like things are temporary, optimistic. And I realized, just by having this path and recognizing now, having language to say, hey, this is temporary, boom, so much more optimistic, so much more hopeful. So very first step is surviving. And this is where your circumstances are bigger than you. They're hard. Okay. That has to do when you've got a difficult pregnancy, when you just had a baby, and then put in your own list, right? Those are 2 things that moms can relate to. But this is where you start dropping the ball on tons of things, because you can't do all those things that normally take care of you and your house and your job and all those things while still getting through that season and dealing with these bigger circumstances than you. I like to think of this as a seed being buried in the dirt, and you're covered with dirt, and it just feels impossible. Okay. The second phase is reentry. Now, reentry is where a lot of people think that they are still surviving in survival mode, but they're not. It's just that you are so behind on so many things that you have to dig yourself out of, that it feels like you're still surviving. In fact, in some ways it feels harder than surviving, because it feels like you're never going to get out of this hole. So for some people that might be like you're buried in laundry, loads of piles of laundry, or you haven't been exercising, and maybe your self-care habits, like brushing your teeth or getting dressed have fallen by the wayside. Maybe your house is cluttered because the kids have been playing in it while you've been laying on the couch, and you haven't been able to clean up at night because you just need to go to bed, or you need to get that work project done. So this is, I feel like, one of the most intense seasons. And the name comes from after I had my second child. I was very sick, ended up back in the hospital with something called C. diff. And, a few weeks after everyone left, after a few weeks after I kind of overcame this, got back out of the hospital, everyone left, and it felt like we were a rocket ship trying to go through the atmosphere back to planet Earth. And I wasn't sure whether we were going to burn up or not. That's where reentry comes from. And because it just felt so hard. But the wonderful news is that it really is temporary. It's short term. And I like to think of that seed now. It's doing the work to burst through and get some leaves through the soil. So it takes a lot of inertia, a lot of effort, but it's also temporary. And then you get to move on to phase 3, and this is called normalizing. And this is where you start to get some basic systems in place. Now, this isn't getting your entire house perfect and getting things wonderfully systematized, okay? But this phase is like, okay, we're getting meals on the table, we're getting clothes in drawers most of the time, or at least cleaned, right? And that you're kind of getting back to the standard that you were. So if this is your very first time as a mom going through this path, like you just had your first baby or your first few babies and you have never figured this out, just getting some basic laundry system in place, basic meal planning in place, basic like getting the dishwash, the dishes cleaned-ish, like that's good. That's your normalizing. That's where we want to start. If you have, you're a seasoned mom and you have been up and down this path a few times, you're going to get to a higher standard at normalizing than someone that's just starting for the first time and learning so many skills. There's just so many skills to learn. It's okay. Not behind, right where you need to be. But that's the goal here, is just to get back to the standard where you were, or some very basic standards if this is your very first time through this path in this process. The fourth phase is exploring. And the reason why we have to move on to exploring before everything is perfect is because a lot of moms I know spend a lot of time in the normalizing phase, making, just stuck in dishes and laundry and diapers. And we say, all I do is this and all I do is that. And it's just burned out, exhausting victim. And we need to take time for ourselves to discover, what do we love? What do we enjoy doing? What brings our and not just for you personally, but also for your family. What kind of family culture do you want to have? What are your priorities? What are your values? What do you care about? And this is supposed to just be fun, no strings attached. For me, it was, we biked, we spent a lot of time outside. I learned how to make, furniture. I built furniture with my kids because they were there. And it was a good project to kill time while I waited for my husband to come home. We spent a lot of time with our friends, and my friends and I learned to sew together and bake sourdough bread together and cook delicious foods and use herbs and spices and start a garden. And and I just did a ton of things. We didn't all do the same things, but we shared what we were learning together, and that was fun. So this is a phase where you bring that joy and that life back into your days. And so in our analogy, I like to think of, this bee that's buzzing all around, trying out all the flowers, seeing which ones they like the best. And then we hit thriving. Now, for the longest time, I was like, and this is where everything's perfect. But I was like, but it's not. It is not. And so really thriving now is the work of, like, you've kind of gotten yourself out of survival mode. You've got your basic systems in place. You're starting to figure out what you like, what's interesting to you, what you enjoy. And this is now where we hit thriving. Now, thriving is growing, right? You think about a plant that's thriving, you say it's thriving because it's got all of this, sun and water and good soil, and now it is growing. And so here is where we get to intentionally cultivate the 3 pillars of thriving. And these 3 pillars are kind of what I have identified in my life, recognizing when things are going well, it's because I've got all 3 pillars. When things are not going well, it's because one of these pillars or multiple pillars is loose. So this first pillar is creating your vision. And that's basically just saying, like, this is what I want to do with my life. This is what I want my family to look like. It doesn't mean you have to go to Europe. It can just say, like, I want to have awesome meals for dinner that we all love, okay? You get to scale this vision. The second pillar is structure. So this is having a good family rhythm to your days, or schedule is another word for that kind of, and systems, so that the things that are important to you are happening. So you can have systems for cleaning your home, but you can also have systems to make sure that you have scripture study, or that you go on a walk every day. Like, systems are just meant to support you so that the things that are most important and essential for you happen smoothly, routinely, and everybody knows the drill. And then the third pillar is the soul pillar. And this is your mental, emotional, spiritual, physical health. Okay. And if you can have an awesome looking life on paper and have systems in place, and if you still feel miserable, it's probably your soul pillar. And for this pillar, a lot of it has to do with your thoughts. And for me, this became really impactful when I learned about cognitive behavioral therapy. And basically we were moving and I could meet with a therapist twice. And she handed me a worksheet. So these are cognitive distortions. So if you're thinking this way, it's not helping you. And here's another second worksheet. And this is what you do with it. So I want you to write your thoughts down, figure out if they're distortions. And if they are, let's figure out more helpful thinking patterns. And so that's what I did. And that was revolutionary because I discovered I was thinking lots of negative cognitive distortion. So we can do another conversation about that sometime. But I help women do this in the Made to Soar program that I have. Build your 3 pillars in place so that you can get those essential things done and create this life that you're really excited about, that's customized to you, your family, because I believe that we don't want to just go from surviving to thriving. We want to go from surviving to soaring. And the soaring mom has the capacity and enjoys using her gifts and talents to bless those in her circle of influence, in her family, in her community, in her church, online, whatever, at your job, is able to receive ideas, inspiration from God and feel like she can act on them, create her life with God, has time and capacity to adventure with her children, whether it is out and about and, seeing places and museums or just reading good books together. Those are all adventuring activities. And to be able to enjoy life as an adventure, to be able to feel that, that peace and delight that comes with raising children. And finally, our relationships, that you have time and energy to cultivate meaningful relationships with your friends and family. And to me, that is the beautiful life that I want to create. That is what soaring means. And so wherever you are in this path from, surviving to thriving, or wherever you're at with your 3 pillars, I want you to know there's hope, because I started this journey of motherhood with basically 0 skills that I needed to create this. And over time, it has absolutely happened. And it's something that you can do. So please check out that checklist at thrivinginmotherhoodpodcast.com/checklist and figure out where you are on the path and what you can do, because I've got some very specific actionable steps in each one of those phases to help you move along the path. So thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to talk with you next week.